do a couple things here to get us started. So yes, tonight's focus will be on resumes and cover letters. And first, just wanted to kind of let you know that this is part of an ongoing series that'll be going on throughout the summer. So what you can kind of look forward to is basically each Monday at 5 o'clock, we're going to be having continuing topics on kind of just general job search tools, tips, things that'll be helpful for you as you navigate this job search process, whether you're a continuing student or a recent graduate. That's kind of the overall purpose, is to help get you set up and ready to go for whatever that next step is for you, kind of regardless of if you're a current student or if you're a recent graduate. I do encourage questions, so I want to make this as meaningful to you as I can. The topic tonight will be going over resumes and cover letters, so I'm going to be kind of giving you some helpful tips on if you're crafting your own resume or cover letter, or maybe you have one but you want to make it better. I'll be giving you general tips, but if you have a specific question, I would encourage you to ask. Probably the easiest way to do that would be through chat, and then if you have more specifics, I can turn on your video and you can ask the questions. So I also want to acknowledge, because you can probably hear my kids. So like probably all of you, I'm working from home, and it's dinner time, and my kids get a little noisy during dinner time. So if you hear screaming 1 and 3-year-old, they're fine. They're just being themselves. So just wanted to acknowledge that you may hear them. So with that, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we will go right in. I've done this before. I'll probably go anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, like I said again. And if you wouldn't mind, what would be helpful is if in the chat, just so I can keep track, if you could just put your first and last name, and like whether you're a current student or a recent graduate. Like I guess if you're a current student, maybe you're a junior or senior, and if you're a recent graduate, just put an alumni, just so I get a sense of that. And it is helpful for me to keep track of who attended the event as well. So thank you. So yeah, we'll go ahead and dive right in. So let's see. So I guess here are some kind of questions to kind of ponder as we kind of start this. One, do you have a resume? Have you written a resume before? Completely fine if you don't have one, or it needs improvement. Kind of, have you written a cover letter? And I guess like this might be a good thing to kind of get us started too. Is I guess, what have you found, and this is where you can use the chat again, what have you found most challenging in the previous documents you've written, whether it was a resume, a cover letter, kind of within either of those, what have you found to be the most challenging? That'll kind of help me make sure I cover those things as we frame the discussion this evening. So I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of chat that in. Again, what was the most challenging in either writing a resume or a cover letter? Just kind of waiting to see if anyone chats anything in about that. Nothing yet. So I guess some common things that I see, I feel like folks generally kind of think the cover letter is more difficult. Oh, here we got some things. So let's see. Knowing what to add and where to add it. Yeah, we'll certainly cover that, kind of like formatting, what's important to include or not. And then I guess another thing came in is like updating a resume you maybe created a while ago and it hasn't been updated. So yeah, I'll be definitely be looking to cover that as well. Some other things that come up, I found that students tend to have a little bit more difficulty with cover letters is just like how to organize it, how to write it. So I'll be going over that as well. I think the next slide here. Yeah, I know David had a good point too. Additional information to put in the cover letter that does not repeat the resume. So yeah, that's kind of an important thing. I'll kind of quickly touch on that, and I will go into it in a little bit more detail. But I think an important thing on a cover letter, what I usually recommend, really for both the resume and the cover letter, but specifically for the cover letter, is have the job description open of the job you are applying for. Usually it's going to have a list of duties, almost like, I mean, these aren't a list of duties, but like bulleted items of what you're going to speak to or what you'd be responsible for in the job descriptions. There's a bullets of things you're going to, what they're looking for, what you'd be doing, taking a look at that and maybe picking three or four and talking about how you have those experiences. So it kind of connects the dots for them of like, hey, we're looking for someone who has these skills, and then you're coming out and saying, yes, I have those skills. Then it's kind of like a no-brainer that place is going to want to, maybe have an interview and learn more about you. And I think that's something else to keep in mind as we go into this is a resume and a cover letter on its own is not going to get you a job. They're very important, but they're not going to get you the job. They're going to get you the interview, where then you're going to be able to showcase your skills and you know uh, wow them enough to then maybe get a job offer. So I think that's always something to keep in mind as well. So for tonight's kind of, thank you for chatting, and that's helpful for me as well. But for tonight, just to kind of give you a quick overview, kind of broke it up into two areas. One is kind of just general resume writing, so crucial information to include, formatting, including your accomplishments, but not listing your duties. That is a distinction, so I'll kind of go over that. Some common mistakes that I see, and then overview of professional kind of cover letters. So we'll talk about formatting, kind of just what I talked about before, pairing your knowledge with the company's needs. An example there is like, this is like an extreme example, but just to kind of showcase it, you might be really good at juggling, you know, kudos to you if you are. But if the job you were applying for is not a professional juggler, then, that might not be important in the context of the cover letter or in the context of a resume. If you're really good at it, it might be important to you, but you got to kind of come at it and think about it from the employer's perspective. They're looking for you to perform a certain job or a certain task. They're trying to assess, will you be good at this or not? So that's always kind of the frame of mind I think is important to have as you come into these, into this. Marketing yourself and also following up. So we'll talk about all those items tonight. And I would encourage you, if you have questions, certainly chat them in. I have two screens up and I can actually see the chat in my other screen. So I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the evening. So I think some things to kind of keep in mind is a resume is your marketing tool. It's that first item that an employer is going to see when they're evaluating you. So I guess I say that, here's some kind of important things to kind of keep in mind. But I guess what I would say is, you want it to represent you well. You don't want it to have spelling errors. You want it to be formatted in a way that's easy to read. You want it to be somewhat original, but I say somewhat meaning you don't want it to be so outside of the norm that an employer is going to look at it and be confused or unable to, it's not clear for them to get the information that they're looking for. Because I think the thing to reflect back to is what the purpose of a resume is in the context of a job search is to quickly and concisely show an employer the skills and abilities, the experiences that you have that are related to the job that you are applying to. What a resume is not is a collection of everything you've ever done in your life. So, sometimes I'll be working with students and they maybe have this, maybe longer form resume that's 2 or 3 pages long. For most folks, particularly, if you right out of high school, you went to college and you graduated from college and now you're looking for a job, I'm going to recommend you want to keep your resume to probably 1 page. If you have a little bit more work experience, maybe 2 pages, but I wouldn't go much beyond 2 pages in general for anyone. And what ends up happening in that conversation when I'm talking with a student one-on-one and we're paring things down is, it's hard. You've maybe put a lot of time and energy into those things that you've done, and they're really important to you. So I guess what I would encourage you to start thinking about is not so much from this perspective of yourself, but put yourself in the perspective of that employer's shoes and kind of be like, okay, what's important for an employer to know about me in relationship to this job? Not that I won first place in the spelling bee in 11th grade. That might be really, no, I don't want to devalue that, but it's not necessarily helpful for the job that you're applying for, unless it was maybe a job that is proctoring a spelling bee or something like that. So anyway, I hope you can kind of follow along there. Um, so here are some a question that kind of came up was kind of how to format a resume. So I'm going to show like an actual resume in a moment, but here is kind of a general ideas of content you want to have in your resume. So I'll show you how to organize it a bit better in a moment, but here are some like common heading or common I'm blanking section headings that you're going to want to have on your resume. You might not have all of these, but I'm going to kind of walk you through them. So first would be a heading. Everyone should have a heading. Should have your name be the first thing, probably in bold and probably a few font sizes bigger than everything else, because you want your name to stand out. Then underneath your name, you're going to want to have some contact information. Definitely going to want to have a cell phone number. Definitely going to want to have an email that you check regularly, and not an email that you made in 8th grade that's like coolkitty67@hotmail.com. You want it to have an email that's some variation of your first and last name. It's okay if there's a few numbers in there or something like that, but you want it to be professional looking. You can use your campus email, but if you're a recent graduate, you may want to start using a new email, just because your campus email, I believe, will go away after 1 year. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Underneath that heading, I would say for the vast majority of you, you're not going to do an objective statement. The only time I recommend an objective statement would be, let's say maybe you've been working in a field for 10 years. You went back to school and maybe you're changing your career path. Like it'll be, looking at I guess like if you're looking at your work experience and maybe it's not lined up much with the career you're looking to go into, then an objective statement might be helpful, because you can, in 3 or 4 sentences, you can give an employer the context of, you could write it more eloquently than this, but it would be something to the effect of, hey, you may look at my resume and see that my experience is in X field, but I've retooled and I'm looking to begin a career in Y field. Again, we could word it more eloquently, but that would be like the main reason I would recommend an objective statement. And I probably would only recommend it to about 5% of people. So the vast majority of you, I'm going to recommend not to have an objective statement at all. Mostly because, if you went from high school right to college and are a recent graduate looking for work, it's going to be pretty evident to an employer that you're looking for your first job. So most of the time, employers recommend don't write an objective statement. That's the feedback we've gotten from employers. It also takes up valuable space on your resume that you could use with other things. So for most of you, the first section I'm going to recommend is education. Under education, I'll kind of show you this in a moment, what it should look like, but you're going to want to have school name, which for all of you would be SUNY Plattsburgh, at least for one of the schools. You're going to want to have the degree you're working at. So usually instead of writing major, I would recommend putting like Bachelor of Art or Bachelor of Science, and then next to that, put whatever your degree was in. So like Bachelor of Art in History, for example. If your GPA was above a 3.0, list that. And then you're also going to want to list your anticipated graduation date if you haven't graduated, or the month and year that you graduated if you've already graduated. If you have a degree from another school, like let's say you got an associate's degree and then transferred to Plattsburgh, or you have a degree in another field and you actually got the degree, then list other degrees that you have. But if you transferred to Plattsburgh and you did not receive a degree from another school, then don't list the other school. Um, so that's a distinction I would usually make. Um, Related coursework, I would probably, for most of you, would not be something you need to put in. Um, Usually I recommend a related coursework. Let's say maybe you don't have a lot of experience, then maybe, or other things to put in your resume. Then related coursework might be something to consider, but for most of you, it's not. A variation of related coursework, sometimes for nursing students or people who do like clinical or practicum experiences, we might reword this like clinical experiences or practicum experiences, and then underneath that kind of put in those experiences and what they were. So it'd be less so the class name, more so like where your clinical or practicum experience was. That's a little more common. So if you have any questions on that, feel free again to kind of chat in. So for most of you, you're going to have your heading, your education, and then probably the next section is going to be an experience section. So depending on how much experience you have, you could break this up into two areas. You could have a related experience, so the things you feel like are most related to the field you want to go into, that could be first. And you give a little bit more detail to those, maybe 3 items that are you feel like are really related. Then underneath you can have what we would call like an additional experience section, where maybe you list off like summer jobs you've had that maybe weren't as related to the field you want to go into. And maybe you just kind of give them one line. You don't go into as much detail. So those are kind of some examples. Um, or if you don't have a ton of experiences, you could just list them all as one, just put them as experiences. Experiences could be a few things. It could be jobs, could be internships, could be research, could be special projects that you've been a part of too. So I guess kind of one thing you're probably getting out of this so far is that there's not a one size fits all approach to creating a resume. Um, so it's very case by case specific. So that's where, like, you may end up having this experience tonight going through this with me, and I'll follow up with some resources on how we can continue to engage with you and keep the conversation going on a more one-on-one level. Additional sections. So these are like, again, where it's a little more case by case. I'd say a pretty common additional section might be like activities. We might call that, I've seen it also listed as like involvement, something like that, or maybe you list off, clubs you were a part of, or if you had a officer position within a club. And depending on the level of involvement and how many other things you have on your resume, sometimes those are listed like jobs. Like if you were president of a club, you might list that off like a job and then kind of have your responsibilities underneath. So that can kind of vary. Sometimes people will put honors. Maybe you got an award. I would recommend staying away from honors you got in high school. I would try to keep them college focused. Really, everything at this point in your resume should probably be college focused, or professional work focused. I would not list anything from high school anymore. And also, I guess I didn't say that earlier. Under education, you do not need to list high school, and I would recommend not listing high school anymore. Skills, I would say for skills, this could be kind of field dependent, but let's say you're in the computer science field, that you could list off like programming knowledge that you have or software. If you're in education, you could maybe list off the credentials that you've received through the education program or the trainings that you have. So really, it could be skills and training. It really just those things you feel like are really field specific that you want an employer to know. Skills you don't want to list are hardworking, team player, I'm trying to think some other common ones I see. The ones that they're just not quantifiable. If you put hardworking, yeah, I probably would like me myself, just one-on-one, like with you, would be like, yeah, you're probably hardworking, but let's demonstrate that you're hardworking by listing off all the things that you've done while you've been in college. Just putting the word hardworking on your resume, like an employer is going to see through that and they're going to be like, no, show me you're hardworking. So don't list those like kind of fluffy skills, if that makes sense. Um, then you could also put volunteer experience as well. And kind of how much you share about that is really dependent on how much room you have in your resume. So those are kind of just some general things here. Um, I want to see. Yeah, here's some, like, I guess some other kind of less common examples. I kind of mentioned this, I guess, already, but here below here would be like, maybe you worked on a project as part of a class, or um, you might have developed skills in an area and you worked on something. You could list like a project section as well. Those are other things as well. So what I want to do, kind of make this a little more engaging, because I just talked a bunch at you, is I want to show you, hopefully it pops up, an example of a bad resume. Um, so I know I can't show the whole thing. I'll try to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. But just with what you can see, feel free to chat in. Like, what are some things that you are seeing on here that do not look good? Maybe looks like the opposite of what I just told you. Yeah, so thanks, David. One thing we see here is like a list of duties and not really like accomplishments. Um, yeah, it's and there, I guess one thing is, sorry, my son is distracting me. I can hear him playing siren in the background. So I guess one thing here, yeah, like they're saying like, oh, I sold drinks to skiers, or uh, I what else? Baked, organized baked goods. Like they're not really kind of putting themselves in the best light. You're also noticing they're saying like I. Don't want to have any I's in your resume. You basically want to start with an action verb and then describe what you did. Um, they have an objective, but it's not a very good one, and that's kind of a case in point of why generally for most people objectives aren't really worth doing. Um, you'll see here that like their heading is above kind of like their name. You want to kind of flip that. Um, also see the way they organize it is just really confusing. So they put, instead of listing like the job and like kind of talking about it, they tried to like break up everything. So like here I'm going to talk about my customer service, which they spelled wrong. Here I want to talk about public relations experience I have. And then what they did underneath is they talked about all their employment history. So it's just really confusing. Like, okay, you were a cashier, but then like, let me see, where did you develop the skills related to that? Like, an employer's going to see that, they're going to start like reviewing it, and then be like, ah, this is too confusing, I'm moving on, which is not what you want to have happen. So, um, they also put in like educations at the bottom, basically kind of the opposite of everything I just told you. But I wanted to kind of point it out just to kind of show you how resumes can go awry. And now I want to show you some resources of finding a better one. So there's actually a resource right on our website that I want to show you. This is just the Plattsburgh main page. If you go under Platts Life, Career Development Center is right here. And when you're on our page, if you go under our job postings and career tools, under career tools, you have to scroll down a little bit too. We have two things I want to point out to you. We have a resume and cover letter guidebook, which is a PDF that you can view, and it has just general kind of resume tips. It also has some kind of sample resumes that you can take a look at. They're all a little bit different, but then maybe even more helpful is we have, so generally I don't encourage templates, but I know templates are helpful. So what we try to do is develop templates that are more in line with what employers have given us feedback on that they like to see. So I want to show you a couple of these. So let's see. They kind of have different focuses, so you can kind of look and see which one makes the most sense for you. So here's like an example, like the sample student, this is like their heading, here's their education, here's like, I think maybe if you wanted to emphasize like training you'd gotten, you could kind of put in all the training you had. You could substitute this section for other things too, like if you wanted to demonstrate like software skills you had or clinical experiences you had, you could have that all here. Related experience, community service, work experience. So really, these are all substitutable. You could change it all out, but it kind of gives you a structure to start with, which I think that for a lot of folks is the most important thing, is getting a good structure down. And why I generally don't recommend, like, if you Google templates, why I recommend not using that would be, this is kind of helpful information for a few reasons. Templates that you find like just Googling, a lot of times they have formatting to make them look a certain way. When you submit, if you've ever applied to a job online before, you upload a file and then it kind of gets sent away. To make that template look the way it does, there's formatting that you can't see, but like behind it, there's coding on the document to make it look that way. When it goes to what's called an applicant tracking system, which if you've ever uploaded a document to a job, it's gone through an applicant tracking system. There's software that reviews that resume before a human eye ever looks at it. And the coding in a resume template can oftentimes screw up the score that you get. So it might score your resume lower than someone else's. And then what ends up happening is your resume then gets lower in the queue first when their recruiter is going to look at it. So generally we recommend not using a template, kind of using a blank document. The nice thing with this is there is no formatting in here to make it this way. And this is something you go to File, make a copy, and then you can have it on your own drive and you can edit it, which we have that kind of instruction up here too. So all of those have that. You could take a look, see which one you like, kind of make it to your own, make it to your own needs. But that's just something I wanted to point out to you as a resource, and better examples of how to kind of have a resume. Let me see. So any questions on like resumes generally? I'm gonna kind of close on one thing here with resumes. It kind of talks about, I guess, in those bullets that you write underneath your jobs, which those templates all have areas for bullets for you to put in. You don't want to just pull from like a job description that you had for that job and kind of write in like responsible for this, responsible for that. Instead, you want to talk about accomplishments you had, like what you did well at that job. So example might be, like here, raised $100,000 by selling out tickets to, for a charity. Anytime you can quantify with numbers, if it's an impressive number, is good. I would say like manage a budget of $10. Maybe you don't want to say that you could say you managed a budget, maybe you don't put in that it was $10. But managed a budget of $10,000, like that's a lot different. So again, kind of using those critical thinking skills you've developed to kind of see like what's going to help me stand out and how am I going to put myself in the best light. What I generally recommend, even when you're writing your resume, is have the job description up for the job that you are applying for and try to tailor those bullets to speak to the job description. Is it more work? Yes. But is it more likely to help you get hits on the applicant tracking system for keywords? More likely. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind as well. And these are kind of some things to kind of keep in mind if you feel like you're getting overlooked. Like, do you have an objective statement? That might be a reason why, or if it's not written well. If it just doesn't seem very personal, if it's fluffy, what I mean by that, if you put in things where it's like, I'm hardworking, I'm, I have good time management, like those skills you put in where it's just kind of like, you're not really demonstrating how you have it, you're just saying you have it. You're not highlighting your accomplishments. So a lot of times like this will come out when I'm having conversations with people where, we're talking and like they'll tell me something that is really related to the job that they're doing, but it's not anywhere on their resume. Like that's kind of the mindset you really want to go in with that employer. Like go into this writing, go into writing these documents with the mindset of an employer. Go into it with like they know nothing about you, so you need to make a clear case as to why you're good for this job. Don't you connect the dots for them. Don't let them connect the dots, because if you make it so they have to connect the dots to see that you'd be a good fit, you're not going to get an interview. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. All right, so I talked about the templates. I showed you where to see those, so I would definitely recommend that. Good tool to get started. And now I kind of want to go shift gears a little bit into cover letters. So to start that off, I want to show you a video. Oh, I can go into a different way. Sorry, bear with me a second. Sorry, I thought that would pull right up. So basically I want to show you, this is another helpful resource I'm going to dive a little bit more into next week, but there's a cool video I wanted to show you about cover letters there. Let's see. So this is a little teaser for next week. I'm going to talk to you more about this resource called Candidate Career. But for right now, I just want to talk about cover letters. Video they have on cover letters. I think this is the one I want.
If you had less than a page to promote yourself, what would you say? Would you dazzle the reader? Would you jump off the page? Would you entice a hiring manager to want to learn more and to want to meet you? The cover letter, sometimes optional, always a great opportunity.
I'm realizing, hang on, I might not have shared my audio, so hang on one second. I'm going to share that. Okay. So
if you had less than a page to promote yourself,
chat in if you
what would you say?
That.
Would you dazzle the reader? Would you jump off the page? Would you entice a hiring manager to want to learn more and to want to meet you? The cover letter, sometimes optional, always a great opportunity. The cover letter is a document sent along with your resume to provide additional information on your skills and experience. It's also a way for employers to screen applicants to determine who they might want to interview. And it's also a chance for you to get a little creative, to demonstrate your writing skills, and to emphasize things in a way that a formatted resume could not. First off, you want to make sure you address the letter to a specific person. With social media sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, even the company's website, there's no reason why you can't find the appropriate person to send the letter to. Every cover letter should have a strong opening, a body, and a closing. But you want to make sure you keep it succinct, because less than a page is highly recommended. The opening paragraph should accomplish a few things. Number one, if you were referred to the company by an employee, or if you have a personal connection to an employee, you should mention that right off the bat. You want to say something direct. For instance, why the job excites you and why you are perfect for it. For this, you will have to do a little research on the company and the industry. You also want to show a little personality and passion. You can't do that in a resume, so this is your chance. But don't try to be funny. Humor sometimes falls flat. The body of the cover letter is where you highlight your skills and your experiences in greater detail, and how those line up with some of the job requirements. You'll want to make sure not to copy word for word any job requirement information or any points off your resume. And if there's some information that the company has requested, this would be a great place to include that as well. And finally, a call to action in the closing paragraph. A reminder of what you want, what you bring to the table, and how the company can get in touch with you. Remember to keep your letter in proper business format. And if you're sending in a hard copy, make sure to give it to your old Herbie Hancock. John Hancock? John? Sign it.
All right. So I know the video is a little quirky. The guy's, he's a little quirky. But let's
If you had less than a page.
oh, come on. What are you doing? I'm just gonna see it again. There we go. Sorry, the controls for Zoom are like right where my tabs all are, so it gets a little funky sometimes. Um, so yeah, I know the video is a little funky or a little quirky, but it does go over a lot of like the highlights that I would recommend for when you're developing a cover letter. Um, a question came in, and generally I would say a resume or a cover letter might not be required, but I would always write one. I think it just shows a level of detail, a level of eagerness, um, motivation, and it shows that you are interested in that specific job because you had to write the cover letter to that specific job. Um, and I would say, oftentimes I kind of will have students come with me, and they might ask a question of like, well, I want to get my cover letter like out of the way for my job search. I'm just going to write one and kind of send it to everyone. um, Generally going to recommend you don't do that. The essence of your cover letter might not change a ton from job to job, but each job you apply to is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have a little bit different responsibilities, and you want to really make it specific to uh, that job that you're applying for. So I want to show you really quick. I'm going to go back to our guidebooks because there's a good example in there that I like to use when I'm working with students to kind of highlight how to structure a cover letter. So bear with me, it's down at the end. Um, all right, so um, and I would echo what they said in the video about this is a formal document, so make it formal. You don't want it to take up, you in my opinion, I don't, we shouldn't even take up a whole entire page. 3 to 4 paragraphs at the most. And that beginning, that intro, that first paragraph should really be, I kind of call that like context and enthusiasm. Give them the context of what job are you applying for, where did you find it, and kind of like where are you at in life. Like, I'm a recent graduate, studying, X, Y, or Z. I have experience in X, Y, or Z field. Um, Kind of giving them that context of kind of who you are, but not so much context of like, oh, like I started kindergarten in 1996, and no, don't go that detail. Keep it job specific. Um, and I guess some enthusiasm, like, here they're kind of talking about like this position kind of combines some of my personal and professional interests. It looks like a really good match. I'm excited to learn more. Again, kind of showing that you're eager for the position. The middle section, which is probably what I would say that this is probably what needs to change from job to job. Um, Also here, like if you put the employer name in, make sure you change that. You don't want to say, I'm really excited to apply with this opportunity at IBM, and you're applying to a job at KPMG or something. You want to make sure it's the right employer because that'll get your application thrown out right away. In this middle part, you want to talk about, look at that job description and pick like what you feel like maybe the most relevant items you have experience with, and make that connection. Basically, in a simple way of thinking about it is like, you're looking for X thing, I have X thing, we are a good match, you should hire me. Like that's what this middle part is all about. And you kind of see here, like this person's trying to do that in this as well. Um, and then the last sentence is more just like the last paragraph is more just a wrap up, talking about what you're going to do next, letting them know how they can contact you, thanking them for their time and consideration. And if you're printing it, like he said in the video, make sure you sign it. If you're doing it digital, you could use like a script font here if you want. Like that's fine. So that's kind of what that should look like. Any questions on the cover letter at all. I think I have some closing items here for the cover letter. Let's see. Um, so yeah, I think some things here just to kind of keep in mind. Keep in mind your audience. With both these documents, keep in mind your audience. Make sure it's organized. A little bit of personal, but not too personal, and formal. Very direct, uh, and clear and simple. I guess what I kind of mean by that is if you want to err on the side of concise, because keep in mind that the employer you're sending this to, while you're kind of, you're writing one and sending it, they are reading 50, 100, I don't know, but it could many. So if you're clear and concise, they're going to be like, all right, boom, you're to the point. You got me what I needed to know, and I'm interested. Um, and maintain their interest. So like again, that's kind of an important thing too. Is if you're reading it and you're losing interest, they're going to lose interest. So that's where that conciseness comes in, and making it clear like why you should be considered for the job. Oftentimes I work with college students, and you you may be a little bit you may sell yourself a little short. You may be like, well, I might not have a lot of experience yet, you know and you may, and even in your documents, sell yourself short. Don't do that. You want to build yourself up in those documents. Make it clear that you're really eager for this position. A lot of entry level positions, they may not be worried about your level of experience. They want to see, like, are you ready to hit the ground running? Are you eager? Are you coachable? That's what a lot of employers are looking for. They may not be as worried as you may think about what level of experience. They can teach you what they need to teach you. They're looking more for, do you have the personality? Do you have the eagerness that we are looking for, so that it's clear that you're going to be coachable, and we're not going to have, we're not going to have a problem. So it's something to kind of keep in mind too. I kind of said, I kind of went through all this before, so I'm not going to reiterate it all. Um, I literally, I think, said everything on here, except I just reiterate, proofread. One helpful way I have found to proofread is read it out loud whether it's to yourself or to someone else, but read it out loud. If you stumble, like you're kind of like as you're reading it, that maybe means like there's I would relook at that sentence to kind of see, is there a way I could say this that's clearer or easier to read. So I found that to be a useful tool. I think I already showed you the sample cover letter. We'll get a little more into this in the interviewing session, which I think is in like 3 weeks. It's just writing a thank you. This is more at the interview spot where you want. So whenever you have an interview, follow up with a thank you, 3 to 4 sentences. So this is I guess a little bit of a teaser. I'll get more into this in a couple weeks about what you should have for that, but just always write a thank you. So with that, I guess I would take any questions that you have. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to pull up right now some resources that will be helpful for you. So I kind of talked again about these career tools. These two, the guidebooks and then the templates, I think would be helpful for you to get started. I also wanted to show you a few kind of follow-up items. So feel free to ask any questions that you have, but to kind of close out tonight, I want to show you, so this is an ongoing series that we're doing throughout the summer. You're in the first one, our job search bootcamp on resumes and cover letters. But throughout the month of June, we have 4 more. So we're doing one on job search tools next week, kind of how to leverage job search tools. We're going to have one on the 15th on networking and LinkedIn. So how to use LinkedIn, and also kind of just generally how to network. And then on the 22nd, we're going to do one on interviewing. So we'll go over skills on basically how to ace your interview, how to get more comfortable with interviewing. And then on the 29th, we'll do kind of once you get a job offer, how to understand salary and benefits and how to potentially negotiate. So we'll cover that as well. And then, we're kind of trying to meet students where they're at. We're redoing this all over in July and August too. So starting July 13th, we kind of do all the five all over again through August. We also have a number of previous workshops that we did in the spring that you can watch as well. So feel free to kind of take a look at those. And they're all on YouTube. And this will also go on YouTube as well on our YouTube channel. And we'll put the recording for that up here as well. So just wanted to let you know about these events. If you click on one of them, you can RSVP and Handshake, or you can go right into Handshake and RSVP directly. But this link will take you right to Handshake to RSVP. And then you'll get the link to the Zoom for the event as well. So I don't see any other questions. So I guess with that, the last thing I'll leave you with is if you are, let's say you went through tonight and you got some helpful tips, but now you're like, okay, I want some follow-up more one-on-one. So a couple ways you can do that. If you just want some maybe quick feedback on your resume, you can email it to me directly. I'll give you my email. My email is Morgan, MORGAN .Pellerin, capital, or it's not capital, but it's P as in Plattsburgh, PELLERIN. So it's Morgan, MORGAN .Pellerin, PELLERIN @plattsburgh.edu. So you can email me, and that's fine. Actually, I'll chat in my email so you have it. Or you can also schedule an appointment. So if you click the make an appointment here, what it'll do is it'll take you to a page where you can see all of our counselors and see when we're available for an appointment. So you click on me. My work schedule is a little wonky right now because I'm at home with my kids, so most of my availability is in the evening. But yeah, you could click on a time and we'd be available to meet with you. And it doesn't have to be with me. It could be with any of our counselors. But yeah, that's another way you could follow up. And I would encourage you to do so. We're probably able to help you a lot more individually than in this format. This kind of gives you some general tips, but one-on-one, we can ask you more questions and try to get you a lot more help. So with that, I hope this was helpful. I would encourage you to think about attending the rest of the series, and also to just engage with us. We are here throughout the summer, and I know we're in kind of an unprecedented time right now, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to develop this series, to kind of meet students where they're at and try to be helpful throughout the summer. And I guess just we're a resource for you, and we encourage you to engage with us. We want to help you, but kind of like you did today, taking this step to engage with us, we need students to engage with us in order to be helpful. So again, I hope this was helpful, and feel free to let your friends know about the upcoming events so we can increase the turnout. And thank you for hanging in there. I will kind of hang around for a couple minutes if folks have more individual questions. But if not, I guess that's kind of all I had for the evening. So thank you, and have a great evening.
You ask questions through chat or through?
Oh, this is fine. Yeah, go ahead and ask.
As I mentioned before, I'm an older student, so my resume has a lot more experience
Yep.
on it. So I would think I would put the professional experience first.
Yeah, and actually, so that's a good point. So I didn't share that, so thanks. Yeah, in your
Well, most of them are much younger than me. So.
Yeah, so is your experience in the field you hope to continue working in?
No, I'm starting a brand new career.
Okay.
I just an accounting major. So.
Okay.
I've had some business experience, but not in accounting.
Okay. And what was your previous like work experience in?
I've worked in telecommunications. I've worked in advertising, and currently I work in education as a teacher's aide.
Okay. So with the context you've given me, what I probably would do is, and I'm assuming the work you're trying to get into is accounting related.
Yeah.
So if I guess what I would probably suggest is
Yeah.
on your resume, obviously have the heading, and then
Right.
you may want to write a summary statement or something about kind of your maybe 3 to 4 sentences of kind of, and I can help you flesh that out. Like you could kind of come up with a draft and
Jeff,
happily look at
stop.
that.
My dog.
But I would probably do something like, uh, why you've kind of gone into the field of accounting and why you're interested in it, because that might help. Because what an employer is probably going to do is see your experience, see the new degree, and be like, I just, that context of an objective statement in your situation might be helpful. So I probably have heading, objective, and I probably would have education next, just because the accounting experience or the accounting degree at this point is probably the most experience you have in the field.
Right.
That would probably shift over time. Let's say you work a couple years in the accounting field, then that probably is going to come up first, once you have that experience. But right now, I probably would have that education section next, and then have the experiences you've had underneath. And length can, for folks in your shoes, I probably would say like 2 pages is okay.
Yeah, I have about 2.
But what I would suggest is and this might help you kind of consider it, is what may make sense is like a related experience section where, I know you don't have maybe direct accounting experience. Maybe it's more like business oriented experience. I think you said like marketing you had been a part of and things like that. Like maybe you kind of pick and choose, like, this is what I feel like is most related to that experience I want to move into. And then underneath you have like additional, or you could go reverse chronological. The choice is, if you're having a hard time kind of picking out what is related and what isn't, then you could kind of go the reverse chronological route. But I would have whatever's most, if you go that route, I would have like the most recent and then kind of work your way down.
Yeah, I mean, I have a resume set up. I know I'm going to have to rework it. I do have my most current job first, though.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of up to you. And as you're kind of looking at it, you'll kind of get a sense of like, if you're having a hard time kind of like parsing out related and like maybe just additional, then I think probably the way you have it makes sense. And the hard thing with resumes generally is like, a lot of times students will come to me like, I need the one answer. What is it? And generally, like, there's not one. So, but I try to come at it from an informed perspective and try to show the pros and cons of either or many options. But, I think for the situation you've kind of put out for me, I could kind of see either the related or the just reverse chronological.
Right.
Yeah. Any particular employers you're like honing in on, or are you looking to move,
I'm looking for, I live in the Plattsburgh area, so Ellenburg area. So I'm looking for an employer around here.
Yeah.
So I also work for a school, so I'm also trying to get like a civil service type of job too.
Okay.
Scheduled to take some exams, but because of the COVID-19, they canceled all those.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it's if you're interested in the state system, it's good you kind of have the awareness of the civil service system, because that's its own bear to navigate.
Yeah, because I already got 3 years in it. So
okay. Some other we did a session a couple weeks ago on staffing agencies. And
Yes, I think I stopped into one of those. Yeah.
okay, good. So we had choir staffing with us.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and I don't know what your kind of timeline is. You know, if you're kind of looking like if the long-term goal is kind of like civil service, but you're kind of looking for something in between
Hmm.
the time, like that might be a good option to kind of look into because they
Hmm.
might be, you know, they might have awareness of accounting related kind of temporary work or something like that.
Hmm.
That might be an option.
Which would help me get experience.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of,
Hmm.
that could be kind of a win-win during this time.
Hmm.
So you know, we don't necessarily endorse specific staffing agencies, but you know, you got to see Coyer, and we've
Right.
had good experience with them. So that
Hmm.
might be one worth checking out.
Hmm.
If you need their information, I think if you just Google like Coyer staffing, they probably come up. So
Okay. And I
yeah,
said about proofreading and reading out loud to yourself, because I tell
yeah.
him that for every essay he writes, he's 18, he'll be going to college in the fall,
Okay.
is key.
Yeah.
I had to yell at him, did you hear that?
Yeah. It's definitely the reading out loud. It's a little trick like I picked up, and then other people have mentioned it, and like, yeah, it works.
It does. It does.
And having someone else read it too, and then like I'm confused, or because what ends
Yep.
up happening is like as the writer, we
We'll
look at it
skim
so
over
much, and
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and then have some
Mhm.
fresh eyes on it is helpful to be like, did you follow what I was saying? um,
Exactly.
any other questions?
My daughter's about to start her virtual ballet class down here.
Oh, okay. Any other questions?
No, but I may be getting in touch just to like
Yeah,
see. We work my resume, maybe send it off to you to take a look
please,
at. See.
please do. Again, my email is just Morgan, Morgan .Pellerin, Pellerin at Plattsburgh.edu. I'm on our website too, so
Okay.
you'll be able to see it there. But yeah,
Okay.
stay in touch. That's what we're here for. We're here during
Hmm.
the summer, so we
Yeah, I'm
may
looking
start doing
forward
that.
to the LinkedIn thing because I signed up and I've been on it, but I really have no idea what I'm doing on it.
Yeah, so no, that's in I think 2 weeks, and we'll go
Yeah.
over like um, you know, basically like uh, a lot of aspects of it. So you can use it as a job search tool. You can also use it to like meet, kind of intermingle with people who are in your field. Um,
Hmm.
I use it a lot to kind of engage with alumni, which is helpful for students because when you're doing outreach, if you kind of have a connection with someone, like,
Hmm.
oh, we both went to Plattsburgh, or something like that,
Hmm.
it can kind of be helpful for someone more likely to say yes to talking to you when they know there's a
Right.
kind of a mutual connection. So,
Hmm.
anything else I could be helpful with?
No,
Okay,
for now. Thank you so much for your time.
no problem. Well,
I didn't know if that other guy wanted to say anything. I guess not.
no, I guess not. I think I've worked with him before too. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, so stay connected, stay in contact, and I'll be in
Okay.
touch. Okay,
All right. Thank you so much.
no problem. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.